All right, I zoomed in a little bit better. Hopefully you can see this better. So chapter 40, basic principles of animal form and function. You guys, this is our last chapter for Bio 2. Monumental. All right, so size and shape. Body plans are constrained by the physical laws and need to exchange materials with the environment. What in the world does that mean? Basically, if you're in the ocean, if you swim in the ocean, you're typically going to have like a torpedo-like body shape, especially if you're a fast swimmer, right? You can't be swimming around the ocean and have all these extensions set off in you because you're going to be producing too much drag to be a fast swimmer. That's what we're saying here, okay? More complex body forms are needed for life in a dry environment. So, bioenergetics is the flow of energy through an animal. This is actually what my entire master's thesis was about, believe it or not. An animal's bioenergetics determines how much food it needs and supplies the energy for its day-to-day needs. This would seem really, really simple, but it's not. So when you look at a candy bar, and it says this candy bar has 30% of your daily fat needs, that's what they're looking at, okay? So, you take in food, right? Your body is going to digest the food, and some of that energy that the food would have produced your body is going to be lost as heat. We agree? Because it actually is going to it's going to lose heat digesting the food. And then you're going to produce fecal matter, so some energy is lost in the feces. And then some of the nutrients are going to go in the body. Some of the energy is going to be lost in urine, right? And then breathing, cellular respiration, you're going to lose some more energy, heat. Some of that is going to get turned into ATP. It's going to be used up in cellular work, which is also going to get lost as heat. Some of it is going to go into growth, storage, your fat storage, reproduction, right? And then it's going to go back into nutrient molecules, body cells, your actual skeletal growth, especially in your growing years, right? You've got those growing pains. That's where it comes into play. So, and then of course, all that is going to produce, yet again, heat. So it just keeps on going like this. Metabolism, metabolic rate. The sum of all, basically this is your metabolism. So remember we said back in the day that metabolism was the sum of all the chemical reactions in your body. That's what we're talking about, right? We just summarized every single possible thing that happens in your body. The sum of all the energy requiring biochemical reactions occurring over a given time interval. It can be measured in calories, or in our case, truly kilocalories, right? If you are endothermic, that means your bodies are warmed mostly by the heat produced by the metabolism within the body, and the body temperature is maintained within a very narrow range. Mammals and birds would be endotherms. If you're an ectotherm, you gain heat mostly from external sources. That's your fish, your amphibians, and your reptiles. Okay? Smaller animals have a higher breathing rate, blood volume, food consumption, and heart rate. Think of mice, they're eating all the time, right? They're constantly looking for food, constantly looking for food. Basal metabolic rate, your basal, your bottom, okay? The metabolic rate when you're not growing, when you're at rest, with an empty stomach, and no stress. So basically you just woke up, you're not stressed out, you've not eaten yet, you're just chilling. That's your basal metabolic rate, your BMR. Okay? Now, a snake's basal is going to have a snake's body temperature is going to increase as the ambient temperature increases, right? Because he's an ectotherm. And then it's going to start getting a little too hot, right? Because the temperature on the outside is getting a little hot. But the jaguar, an endotherm, is staying constant regardless of the ambient temperature. Ambient meaning environmental temperature, right? Okay, homeostasis. Woo, going back to chapter 1. It's full circle. Full circle, guys. Dynamic state of maintaining the internal balance over a small range of changes. It can be basically constant temperature, constant pH, constant salt, right? Homeostasis. Control systems have receptors, control centers, and effectors. Everything is going to try and keep everything constant. Okay, that's what we're looking at. If your body temperature starts to get above normal, your nervous system is going to send signals for your blood vessels to dilate and your sweat glands to start producing sweat. That's when you start getting flushed, you start sweating. You agree? Body heat is lost to the surroundings. You're getting flushed because your blood vessels are opening up, bringing the blood to your skin, with the idea being that the blood is going to be in contact with the air and you're going to lose temperature that way. Okay? Blood temperature drops back to normal and you're good. If your body temperature drops below normal, your blood vessels are going to constrict. Your sweat glands are going to remain inactive because you don't want to sweat. Just remember, when you sweat, the hottest molecules are going to leave your body, causing your body temperature to go down. We don't want that, right? Because you're cold. You're colder than normal. So no sweat production. We're going to constrict everything. So your hands get colder, your toes get colder, your feet. We're going to constrict the blood because it's more important to keep the blood right here in your core. Okay? Body heat is conserved. You might have muscle activity, right? Shivering to start producing body heat. And hopefully your body temperature rises back towards normal. As long as everything's good, your hypothalamus says, yay, we're good. If it's not, your hypothalamus is going to either cause the nervous system to vasodilate or vasoconstrict, depending on you're too hot or you're too cold. Okay? Now, here's what's interesting. Birth. Hey, you knew I had to bring that up. Last chapter, have to. As the baby's head starts to push on the cervix, right, the nerves are going to start causing transmission to the brain, saying, yo, something weird's going on. The brain's going to stimulate the pituitary gland to start releasing oxytocin. If you ever heard, oh, I had an oxytocin drip, that's because your body normally produces oxytocin. That oxytocin goes into the bloodstream to the uterus, and then your uterus starts to contract from the top of the uterus to slowly push the baby out through the cervical opening. Okay? So that stimulates even more contractions, pushes the fetus towards the cervix, which is going to go to stimulate the brain to start releasing more oxytocin, and the cycle keeps going until the baby's completely out. Very simple. Very cool at the same time. Process by which animals maintain an internal temperature within a tolerable range, that's thermal regulation. You want to regulate the thermometer, the temperature, right? Ectotherms do not necessarily have low body temperatures. Endotherms can perform vigorous activities for much longer than is possible for most ectotherms. Heat is exchanged by 4 physical processes. You've got conduction. Heat transfers fluid from molecule to an adjacent molecule. You've got convection, the movement of a group of molecules in a fluid, right? Moving around. Radiation, electromagnetic radiation generated by thermal motion of its charged particles in matter. And evaporation, the loss of heat due to transfer to a liquid on the surface that turns into a gas, right? Sweating, basically. Be comfortable with these guys. Insulation. All right, if we're talking about marine mammals, it's blubber, except for sea otters. That's their hair. Their hair is so thick. They have 1 million hairs per square inch. Their fur is really blooming thick, okay? It can be feathers. It can be fat. It can be hair. If we're talking about polar bear, it's hair. It just depends on the animal. That's going to slow down your heat exchange with the environment. It's your insulating yourself. Vasodilation, vasoconstriction, you're vasodilating. You're allowing more blood through your vessels to the skin. Or vasoconstricting, you're allowing less of it to close to the skin, less of it inside. The blood vessels are getting smaller, getting everything away from the skin. So keeping it away from the environment. Now, this is what's really cool. Right here, countercurrent heat exchange. You see that? Countercurrent heat exchange. This stuff is so cool. Okay. Your extremities. So look, this is the fin of a dolphin. The blood that is going towards the fin is warm, yes? But as we get closer to the fin, right, it's going to get colder. So instead of allowing that blood to get all the way down here nice and warm and then freezing and then having to rewarm that whole blood all the way down, what happens is countercurrent heat exchange. So the warm blood comes down here, and that warm blood is going to warm up the blood that was cooled down here. So it's rewarmed as it's going back up to the heart, to the body. So as this blood blood continues to get closer to the extremities, it's already getting cooled because it lost its heat to the blood that's returning to the body. Countercurrent heat exchange. So the arterial blood is warming the venous blood that's returning to the body. It's really, really cool. I love this stuff. All right, torpor. You have hibernation, which is long-term torpor, and that's an adaptation to winter and food scarcity. This is what your bears do, right? Why be walking around when there's not that much food, when it's cold, you're going to use a lot of energy, you're going to lose a lot of weight. Just go into a deep sleep. That's what bears do. Then you have estivation. This is when it's too dang on hot to be out and about, right? Torpor in the summer, allowing organisms to survive long periods of high temperature and scarce water. You're not having a problem finding food, you got a problem finding water. It's too hot and you're not finding water, right? So that's estivation. Hibernation, cold. Estivation, hot. Daily torpor, adapted to feeding patterns, and it's controlled by biological clocks. We're done, guys. Proud of y'all. Miss y'all.